Grant,
Cool.
well, thanks for taking the time to go through the accounts. I mean, it's something that you've started doing every year for quite a long time now.
Yeah, I forget how long we've been looking through the accounts for now, but given I've been an accountant for 15 years, I've always taken a keen interest in how the club accounts look, and I think it's fair to say they've been on a real journey of development over those last 15 years or so.
I mean, it was an interesting story how it sort of transpired, because you used to sort of go on blue and amber message board and talk about accounts, and the chairman said, like, do you want to do it properly?
Yeah, he did. I think he spotted a mistake in one of my reports I did for the fanzine one year, and said, rather than do that, just come in and ask us any questions you've got, and then that will make your report more accurate, and you can share it with the rest of the supporters. And I think since we've been able to put that report on the club website as well, it's just allowed all of the fan base, hopefully, to understand a little bit better what goes into the accounts and the interesting things that are in there.
And it's an approach I haven't really seen elsewhere at any other sort of clubs.
Yeah, that's right. I think it is becoming slightly more popular now, and there are a number of people around the web who analyse football club accounts. But I think it's a really good bridge between those of us who know what accounts say and kind of speak the language, being able to bridge that to people who have no idea what a profit and loss account is, or what a balance sheet is. And I think that's important because it allows the club to connect a little bit more with the fans.
I guess as well, it's one of those strange businesses, football, which is a little different from a normal day-to-day business, and the account as well is sort of like, it's how those are reflected.
Yeah, that's right. And I think for me, the biggest difference between a football club compared to another commercial business is that most commercial businesses trade to make a profit and to make a return for their shareholders, whereas for the vast majority of football clubs, they are there to survive and to use their money and their resources in the best way they can to make their team as competitive as possible on the pitch. So it's not really about making a profit. It's about managing the cash that they've got in the best possible way to drive the club forward.
And again, the accounts that we've just put out is another healthy set of accounts.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you're looking at, and people will look immediately at the profit figure, which is great. But I also look at other things, such as what's the cash balance, and the cash balance is nearly 3 million, which is great. But also, we have this thing in accounting speak called debtors, and this is essentially money that other people owe you. And the club were owed, well over £2 million at the last year end as well, which is essentially cash for the next season that's going to come through. So that means they're in a really healthy position going forward.
I mean, that figure as well can come from anywhere. I mean, transfers that went in at a certain time and then the actual cash wasn't in, but they are accounted for. Yeah,
that's right. So the way that it works is that if you sell a player, or there's a sell-on fee that the club have earned. So, for example, when Connor Galton went from Brighton to Rangers, Shrewsbury would have got a sell-on fee for that. You recognise the income for that deal immediately, so on the day that deal happens, but then you might not receive the cash or all of the cash for a number of weeks or months afterwards. And clubs need to use that within their budgeting. That what clubs are looking at when they budget is how much cash do we think we're going to have over the next 6 to 12 months, and that really will dictate how much we can afford to spend on players, on transfer fees, on upgrading the stadium or the training facilities, etc. So really, for me, cash and the things around it, like debtors, are more important rather than just looking at profits.
The other thing to look at on the balance sheet is the assets. I mean, the stadium, the training ground and stuff, which are all part of the figures of how healthy the club is.
Yeah, that's right. And Shrewsbury again are in a good position because we own our own grounds, our training ground, which has obviously gone through a big upgrade in recent seasons, and also now the Power League facility as well. We've got the AstroTurf pitches there, and the supporters hub. This is great, and we own all of those. There's no debt outstanding on those, and that's that's very unlike a lot of other clubs, certainly in the lower leagues.
And one of the figures that was down that stands out is the turnover, but I guess we're looking at what was an exceptional season with Wembley's finals and other high crowds as we were pushing for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. And if you think the season before last, we got to Wembley twice. We also had a decent cup run, and we had the extra home league game in being the playoff game against Charlton, which not only brought with it a capacity crowd, but was on Sky Sports as well. So there would have been lots of additional revenue in that season. And that was we hope it's going to be repeated in future seasons, but it was a bit of a one-off, wasn't it, in terms of those extra cup and league games.
I'd happily skip Wembley if it meant going up. Anyway.
Yeah, I think we all would. Yeah.
I guess it's like the club's prudent approach over the years. I mean, ever since I've worked there, has to be worked within its means, and I guess fans are now seeing that is the right approach, especially with Bury, Macclesfield, other clubs that have found financial difficulty.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you look at, and I've put it in my report, some trend analysis over the last 15 years, and we could probably go back a little bit further there to look at how the club's position in respect of cash, debt, turnover has changed over those 15 years. It shows a story where Shrewsbury have always tried to live within their means, but those means have grown and grown and grown over those 15 years. And it means that Shrewsbury are in a very safe position compared to a lot of clubs, and especially those like Bury were, or like Macclesfield and Southend, etc. are now. But it also means we're able to spend more money on wages and salaries of players, transfer fees, upgrading the ground, etc. So it's been a really good story, and I do think that people are starting to see that. There was a number of years where people would look at that set of results and say, well, we're not rolling the dice, we're not being as ambitious as we could and as other clubs have been, but actually what the club are trying to do is build in sustained growth, so that it's not just one season they throw the kitchen sink at something, that they can build and build and build both the infrastructure of the club and also the amount they can afford to spend on players on the pitch. And that should, touch wood, lead to stronger positions in the league.
I guess as well, finally, it's an interesting time at the moment with all that's going on with coronavirus and how that will affect it. Football's currently suspended for who knows how long. So I guess as a club, we're in a good place to weather that. But it'd be interesting to see what the landscape is when we come out of it.
Yeah, I think it will. And both in the short term, in terms of what happens to clubs that aren't in a stronger position as us, as to whether some of them really struggle and have to maybe trim the size of their squads. But also the medium and the long term, it's going to be interesting whether it's going to make football clubs take a slightly more sensible approach going forward. And also what happens to the governing bodies. Will the EFL or the FA bring in tighter measures so that, if there's a lockdown in the future, and this could happen again, the clubs would be better protected. It's going to be, I really hope that happens on both of those levels, and that we stop, seeing the boom and bust that so many clubs have gone after, and have caused their supporters and their employees so much pain in many cases.
Yeah, because I guess it's an unknown situation that we haven't had to deal with, but as you said, it could happen again. So in a way, it's a good base to start a blueprint of what can happen. Yeah,
absolutely. And although for Shrewsbury, I hope it means business as usual, and other clubs start looking and going, well, maybe this is the model we need to follow.